Welcome back to the Ambition Over Fear portal. I'm Atlas Opia, and I help people expand their interdimensional knowledge. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the hermetic principle of rhythm. Now, whether you've heard about this principle or not, the wisdom behind this teaching is truly here to help you bridge the gap between your interdimensional soul and your human body by giving you a new relationship with the light and the shadow and moving us out of the world where we're only chasing pleasure and we're running away from pain. So if you watch until the end of this video, you're going to get an idea of how to implement the hermetic principle of rhythm. So the hermetic principles was a channeled work created by the spiritual teacher called Hermes. Now, he was known by this name in Greece, and in Egypt he was known by Thoth. During this time period, he brought in a piece of information that then went into create the Emerald Tablet, and then in more modern times it went into a book called the Kabbalion. Now, why is this principle important? Because it builds a bridge between physics and consciousness. It gives us an understanding that everything is really connected, and we are in this beautiful labyrinth called consciousness. And once we understand how the different layers come together, the labyrinth becomes a game. The confusion becomes a way to dive into the mysterious parts of life with more certainty and more calm ease. And when you're more calmer, you can see the moving parts more efficiently. When you're more still, you can understand the layers that come together to create something. Okay? So step one in understanding the hermetic principle of rhythm is realizing that it works the same as gravity, right? We have all seen those contraptions that have a metal ball at the bottom, right? Or any type of tool where if you pull this piece of material, usually connected to a ball of metal, then it goes to the same length on each side. So imagine that you work in a similar fashion, right? The spectrum in itself is the shadow and the light, right? Pleasure and pain. And the world of duality truly opens up when we're not allowing our awakening or our growth and personal development to serve as a way to justify us always wanting to avoid our shadow or ignore that part of ourselves. Because when we're expanding, there is always different types of motivations that are there. Now, you do have a motivation to really come into a new level of awareness so you can operate on Earth with more strategy and playfulness. And that can give you a greater power when you're deciding what you want to experience in your life. But we also have subconscious thoughts. And those thoughts at times are, well, something happened to me when I was younger. There was an experience or a set of circumstances that have created a level of trauma within. And that didn't feel good, because as we experienced those things, it might have felt like there was no way out. So our brain ultimately moves into a position where we believe that we could have avoided that pain if we had controlled something more or done something differently. So then as we move forward, we believe that, okay, as long as I find out how to move out of pain and into pleasure, then I'll have a better life. And the hermetic principle of rhythm states that in energy has purpose, no matter what we assume it to be. That regardless of the experiences that have happened in our past that give us a preconceived notion of what an area of life means to us, an energy will mature if we allow it to. If we can see our pain as a way for us to learn something new, if we can see our shadow as a moment for us as an observer, a higher self, to sit with our body and our mind, and almost as if, we are a parent in the higher self, the mother and the father, and the body is a child, we're comforting the child. We're seeing that the journey our soul is in right now is truly sacred because we have endured very challenging times. We have questioned ourselves. So you almost want to look at your pain and your shadow and see it as an important part of the puzzle, because it may have given you your greatest strengths. It may have forced you to love yourself more. It may have put you in a place where you had no other option but to lean into acceptance. And although we would like to learn from joy, shaming the fact that the shadow teaches us a lot about ourselves is an unfortunate assumption, because then we're taking, a part of our being, 50% of our system, and we're not understanding how to utilize it because we're too focused on wanting to experience good all the time. But if we realize that there is no good and bad, and neutrality states that everything has a purpose and can be valued if we see it from the right perception, then all of a sudden we're in rhythm. We're allowing the shadow to take us where it needs to. We're allowing the moments of pain to give us moments where we're not fighting where we may be in this present moment. We're not fighting what has happened to us. We're more in a position of stoic acknowledgement that this thing is part of our journey. This thing is here to teach us something. So that's step one. Now step two in understanding the hermetic law of rhythm is taking time to move away from needing validation in the external world. We see pleasure and achievement as a feedback mechanism that lets us know we're doing the right thing. Because as we were growing up, it's very normal for a human to avoid pain and go into pleasure because our bodies are programmed to protect our physical survival. And if you look back at the human race in the primitive years, the idea of chasing pleasure and moving away from pain was there so the primitive humans could avoid plants or animals or certain actions that could harm their life or the life of their community or tribe or loved ones. So pain and pleasure back then was more of a alarm system. But nowadays we're moving into emotional survival. And when you realize that the body is here to build a bridge between our soul and the third dimension, and the body holds our soul so we can be in this reincarnation and be in a container that matches the frequency of the virtual reality we're getting to experience, the emotion becomes the way we are able to connect to the world and our thoughts. And so when you realize that now We're not operating from one dimension of consciousness. We're not operating from this simplistic way of living. We've evolved as humans, and now we're dealing with our interdimensional consciousness in whatever way you're experiencing it. When that happens, it's no longer about what do I have to do to be efficient in this one layer, which usually means there is something to do and something to not do. But when there's multiple layers, now there's no right and wrong, but how do you use each layer to benefit you? How can you use your ups and downs as a way to be in more flow? How can you use this pendulum of light and shadow as a mechanism that truly allows you to let go long enough for the manifestations you want to experience to appear in moments of letting go? Because letting go of the mind is letting go of how you used to do things, because the mind is a tool that repeats the information that has been inputted in the software that is the subconscious mind. So it only is repeating what it knows, because your subconscious mind is always picking up on information in the background. So feel into that for a moment, right? Can rhythm teach you about trust? Can it allow you to move into the feminine more efficiently, which is being more receptive and open? Now, step 3 in understanding the hermetic principle of rhythm is truly embodying the channeler that created this work in the first place. We are an entire collective consciousness. Every single person we see, every country, every race, every political issue, all this is part of the one organism that we are tapped into, which is the collective consciousness. But everything evolves. So in order for this large life that is being hosted on our planet to move forward, we have to encounter certain trauma and pain that pushes us in a direction that we never thought we needed to go in, that allows us to thrust on the exact opposite side. And so when you're realizing that, you ask yourself, how does the new evolution come into play? Well, there are people, teachers and channelers that open themselves up as a vessel to receive information from the higher dimensions. So then as the information is coming into the body, this new code, this pocket of information can store itself in the cellular system in DNA. And then that itself merges into the field of Earth, because your body is of the third dimension, and Earth itself has components that are part of the third dimension. So whenever a certain chemical goes into a petri dish, it affects everything. Whenever you're allowing information to come in, it moves into everything. So the Hermetic law coming from Hermes is teaching us how to bridge the shadow and the light. Rhythm creates a connection between both and makes both equally important. But to do that, you have to embody the philosopher. You have to embody this state of mind that this channeler was in when he brought in this information. And what does that require of you? It requires you to allow your curiosity of the unknown, your curiosity of what you don't know, to be greater than your insecurity of proving what you do know. Right? All right, now step 4 in understanding the hermetic principle of rhythm is realizing that if you wait long enough in non-judgment, you can move out of a state of feeling like a victim, because all these things have happened to you in life. Now, I understand how trauma feels. I understand the complexities of mental health. I have gone through large amounts of shadow and chaos and psychosis during my life. And what helped me come out of that confusion was realizing that the way I was functioning before that may have been causing the issues was living from a place where I had an awareness of the multiple dimensions at which I'm existing in, the multiple layers of my mind, and the multiple complexities that create the whole of what I am. And then as I understood, higher dimensional knowledge and alchemy, I realized that I was just experiencing something I didn't understand. So if you can look at your shadow and say, okay, I may not have a great relationship with you. And if you do, that's great, right? But a lot of us are healing from the idea that our shadow is bad. And that the whole purpose of growing is going to come from leaving that shadow. But what if you find a position where you can see beyond the pain, and you can see that pain itself is a unique form of consciousness, and that maybe you're supposed to go through a certain pain so you can move into a certain timeline, which is a path forward of particular experiences and thoughts and ways of living that are more connected to your soul. But what if we don't know what we don't know until we're forced to learn it through uncomfortable situations? And what if in that state of resistance and confusion, if we just let go for a moment, how would that change? How would that create a sense of peace inside of us? And how would it allow us to see the light and the shadow as the same thing, which is our soul having a human experience? So when you're having an experience that is something you prefer, and then you're going through something that feels uncomfortable, you ask yourself, how can you use the concepts of humor and entertainment to view these situations from a perception where you're interested at what you're observing? If we can watch TV, right, or a show, or grow up and like beautiful animals in the animal kingdom that are aggressive, such as sharks or bears or tigers, then how can we look at our shadow with that same type of admiration? The key is to not be attached to it. That's where it all comes back. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I upload a video every Tuesday and Thursday. Definitely subscribe if you're looking for guidance during this time in your life. If you're wanting truly to feel more at peace with your shadow and to create a relationship with your shadow that is productive and healthy instead of dismissive. There's a lot of gaps that we have fallen into as a collective, and one of my jobs, as a higher dimensional soul in this human reincarnation, is to bridge those gaps with information that I did not receive during my journey forward. So hopefully I can pass it forward to you, and if you would like to expand even further and understand the application of higher dimensional knowledge. So instead of you tapping into information and then that powerful knowledge not translating into a larger effect in your human life, then I would consider my galactic quantum coaching, because it is there where I break down skills that can allow you to know what dimension to go in and why and what to do there, depending on what your current situation or circumstance calls for. And if you're a galactic guardian, which means your soul has had a reincarnation as an interdimensional being, and you truly are supposed to continue the work you were doing there in this body, I provide people a set of tools that can allow them to repurpose their mind and identity to merge into this new awareness, instead of the body and the identity being so separate from the higher dimensional being that you are. Okay? Hope you guys have an amazing day, and like always, stay in power and peace and simplicity. All right, bye.